Did your parent or parents disappear your pets? I made a video, and I'll include it at the end of this video, where I was talking about how my mother would disappear anything that was precious and meaningful to me. Her favorite things to go after would be like, I had a little stuffed bunny or my Barbie, and I typically only had one at a time. She would go after, well, she always took my money, my babysitting money, my birthday money. Anything that she knew that I loved, I knew was eventually going to disappear. I didn't realize she was doing it on purpose until my bunny, because there were plenty of things that went missing before that. It was my bunny where I realized, oh, I'm looking for this, and she let me, and she has a smirk on her face. And we all, well, a lot of us, most of us, know what that smirk meant. The smirk still makes me queasy. I could pick up my mother's energy without even looking on her face, and I knew that the smirk was there. If you know, you know, right? If you know, you know. Anyway, I had a dog and a cat. My mother named them both, just so that when I come out with their names, you don't look at me like, how did a little kid, anyway, pick those names, yeah. The dog was a really special present. It was for my birthday. It was when we were moving into our first house. We had been living in a condo in Miami, and my dad took me along with my mother to go pick my dog from the breeder. It was a German Shepherd. And I remember my mother like trying to direct me and trying to force her will on me. Big shock, right? And I kind of hid behind my dad and was like, that one over there. Like I knew which one I wanted. And normally I would have never done that, but I had him. That's how much I relied on him and trusted him, that I would actually be brave enough to hide behind him to point to the one I wanted. And my mother named the dog Gucci. And I love that dog. I mean, that dog was my baby, my confidant, my best friend, everything to me. There wasn't a day that went by that I didn't sit for hours with the dog and like talk to her, take her to the field, walk her. And the dog actually hated my mother. Didn't ever try to bite her, but definitely would give a little bit of a growl towards her way on occasion. There was one time my mother was coming into my room to do the closet rip apart raid thing, and the dog was there, and she turned around, and I know that's what she was coming to do because I saw the smirk, and I knew what my mother looked like when she was about to do that. P.S. I wasn't allowed to have the dog in my room again after that. Shock, right? Not really. At some point, we got a little kitten. Well, and we had it long enough that it became a cat kind of thing. And I say it that way because my grandparents my grandfather brought home a kitten that barely made it to cathood before they gave that cat away. And funny, my grandmother got rid of my pet, and my mother got rid of my pet, and that's my mother's mother. So it all tracks. All the pieces come together eventually. They don't make sense because it doesn't make sense to torture a child, to hurt a child, but they make sense in terms of recognizing who the characters are and the patterns of abuse and how they play out and the lack of empathy and everything else that's wrapped into that. Anyway, my mother got it in her mind that she wanted a black cat and it would become my cat. Don't know why. And I kind of think about, she wanted a black cat, like, why not just get her a broom and get it over with, The Wicked Witch. Anywho, she named the cat Celine, and I love the cat. And really, I just loved animals in general. Anyhow, my stepfather, who was my daddy, died 2 weeks after my 12th birthday. And I know with every fiber of my being, and even police reports and autopsies, and I don't think I'll ever get justice, but I know that my mother had something to do with his death. And I am working on it. I will never stop working on it. My mother is someone who had, I lose count, 6 husbands, a domestic partner, 4 dead, 1 of cancer. Doesn't that seem a little odd to you? Anyhow, getting back to my pets. And if this video seems a little choppy, I apologize. I have to keep restarting because my computer is acting crazy and freezing on me. So happy, happy, joy, joy, but I want to get through this video because it's important. I get home from school about, I don't know, a week or two after my dad died. It would probably be more like 2 weeks after my dad died because we sat Shiva. So, well, sort of sat Shiva. My mother did like not much of a Shiva, and I don't think that she held to the whole week or anything like that. I get home from school, and where am I going to go? Well, the dog's house was in the garage because it wasn't allowed to be in my room anymore because the dog was protective of me, and no dog, no cat. And my mother tells me that somebody came to pick up Gucci, and they've renamed Gucci Sheba, and Sheba is going to live on a big farm and have a happier life because we can't keep the dog anymore because we're going to move into an apartment. So that would all seem okay in a way if that were true. And if she let me say goodbye to the dog, and if she let me know that she was even thinking of giving the dog away. And looking back at how elaborate her story was, and there was no witness to the story, so it wasn't for show like other things. I have to wonder what really happened to Gucci. I have no idea. And the cat, she never said anything about it. The cat was just gone. And I didn't ask because I knew better. So, yeah. I don't even have any more words to give around that, except for I'm sorry for all my sibling survivors out there who lost pets in a same or similar manner. I'm really sorry. Did your mom ever try to intimidate you by making sure you never speak out or run away? Yes. Yes, and yes, and yes. My whole childhood was intimidation. My mother made sure that I knew that nobody was going to believe me if I did speak out, because she started the smear campaign right from the beginning. I became aware that my reputation in the family was that of a family liar when I was 4 years old. I can remember one of my aunts referring to me that way. And the rest of the family group of relatives would say things like, I had quite an imagination and I made up stories. Basically the same thing with a softer wording around it. Kind of like when my mother told everybody I was boy crazy. I mean, we're talking, I'm 9 years old. And behind closed doors, she was calling me a tramp and letting me know that I was damaged goods and that everybody knew. These are things that silence a child. They know I'm the bad one and that I deserve all the ways that she treats me. So what am I going to tell on myself? If I say my mother is saying this or doing that, by the way, it was my normal. So I didn't even have like the words around it to articulate what was going on. But let's say, for argument's sake, I had something that I felt I could tell. You would think being dropped out of a 2-story window, that would have been the thing. But she got in front of that right away, like super fast, right? So, you know, she's sitting there telling me in all different ways, showing me in all different ways, I'm the bad one. So now let's say I find the words to tell. I am telling on myself. I know that because I deserve to be treated that way. And my own mother doesn't love me. That says something about me, not about her. That's how children's brains work. We internalize everything because our parent teaches us what our value is and who we are. And in the case of a narcissistic abuser, what we learn about ourselves is we aren't worthy of love, of kindness, of care, of anything good. If I accepted anything from anyone, like let's say a present or a kindness or help, whatever it was, my mother would tell me that that person knows I'm a user. For a birthday present, I'm a user? And that, you know, they all see right through me kind of thing. So that's all the stuff, like there's so much more than that, that goes into the silencing of a child. And then the other part with running away, well, I started running away when I was around 6 years old after the window drop, after she tried to unalive me, which, by the way, also lots of by the ways, but anyway, I did not realize until a couple of years ago that my mother was trying to unalive me. I didn't realize that she would have no way of knowing that I would walk away with just 2 broken arms. How crazy is that? But my mind wasn't going there. I guess it was too painful to accept that my own mother would actually intentionally try to unalive me. And there's lots of circumstances like that where I have absolute memories of the events, of everything that went in and out, sideways, around the event, the scent in the air. It was raining the day that she dropped me out of the 2-story window. So I can remember how the air smelled. I never forgot any of the details. I just didn't have the lens, the perspective. That's the age I started running away from home. Initially, when I started running away from home, I hate those words. I mean, I don't hate them for my life now, but describing anything as home back then, home has such a different meaning to me now. I met my father. It was somewhere within the period where my arms had been broken. I didn't have the cast on anymore, so I met him after that. I hadn't seen him since I was 14 months old, had no memory of him. I knew what he looked like because my mother kept scrapbooks of him, or one scrapbook that she had underneath the bed, and I used to sneak in her room and lay on the floor and watch and look at the scrapbook. And sometimes he was on TV and I would watch him on TV. My dad was a professional bowler. He was actually the first Canadian bowler to be inducted into the Pro Bowling Association in the US. He was also the vice president of the Montreal Forum. So here I am, I'd say around 6 years old, and my grandparents took me to his office in the Montreal Forum. And I remember him picking me up and putting me on his desk, patting me on the head, and having his secretary get me a Montreal Forum hot dog, which were the best, and a Coke. And so this was a treat, and he was kind to me. And look, the pat on the head was enough. I was sold. And in my little mind, I thought, oh, he can rescue me. He's gonna save me. He loves me. He's my daddy. I didn't know at the time he was signing some sort of paperwork, probably to do with transferring child support because I was going to live with my grandparents. I know he paid child support for me throughout my childhood, so there was that. Anywho, I end up going back to my grandparents and I'm living there, and I start walking towards the tall buildings every chance I get because I know he works in a tall building. I know it's not that far away, but for my little legs, apparently it is. One time I got really clever. I was 7. I got on a bus, and that time I got caught because I wasn't able to make it back to my grandparents' house before dinner. So I would run all the time, and nobody really knew it, but also nobody really cared because here I was, this little girl, 7, 8, and 9 years old, on the streets by myself all the time. No supervision, no nothing. And I had a weird memory unlock the other day where we had a backyard at my grandparents' place, and I loved the garden. Like, it was gorgeous, especially in the spring. Had tulips and daffodils and all my favorite flowers. And I wasn't allowed to play in the backyard. Isn't that strange? And I don't remember a reason given, but I was allowed to roam the streets, this little girl by herself, and somebody's gonna go, oh, it's the 70s. It doesn't matter. You don't let a 7-year-old. I was the only one of that age who didn't have a parent checking on me or adult supervision. So 70s be damned, not true. Playing in front of the house, sure, but not roaming the streets the way that I was. So that's when I started running away. Fast forward, my mother throughout this time, she's husband hunting, so she comes, she goes, no rhyme, no rhythm, no schedule, no nothing, and nobody is talking to me or my brother about anything that's happening. We're just little objects placed from one house to another, and that's the way it goes. His father comes to pick him up. I don't have a daddy picking me up. And many, many, many times my brother sat out on, really, it's my mother's son. He's not my brother. He belongs to her. But at the time, I felt like he was my brother. He would sit on the stoop in front of the house on the stairs. And I would sit there with him, kind of hoping that when his father showed up, that he would take me too. I wanted a daddy. And as I sat there were many times that my brother sat there all day long and his father didn't show up. Looking backwards, I think that my grandparents left him out there like that to keep his dad in the frame as somebody unreliable and a bad guy. Because I don't really think he wouldn't have just shown up. Like, I would think he would have called. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't have proof. And he is a bad guy as far as I'm concerned. Like, my brother was in his house with his wife and his half siblings, and none of the kids knew that he was their sibling. He had to call his dad by his first name because his dad's wife didn't want him to know that the dad was married before with a family before. I'm like, what? And when the kids did find out, it's because I told on him. I told on the whole situation without knowing that I was doing that. I ended up going to summer camp with my brother's half brother from his father. Are you following this? There's some dots to connect. And so his brother, who was around my age, had a crush on me, and I didn't like him like that. I mean, we were little. We were like 10 or 11 years old. And so because I didn't know how to say no, I said, well, you're my brother. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm not your brother. I'm like, yeah, because my brother is your brother, therefore you're my brother. I didn't understand how that worked either. And he's like, that's not true. He's just a friend. I'm like, no, that's true. So that's how the cat got out of the bag. Don't lie to your children, people. The truth comes out. Don't lie to them anyway because you want them to trust you. But, these people don't think along those lines because, they are all powerful and entitled to do whatever they want to their children. So my brother's father obviously was not a good guy, was not a good father, but I still don't think that all those times he didn't show up. I even can remember a couple of times the phone ringing. Don't tell me that they didn't know. But my grandparents did no emotional care for my brother and I at all, other than the grooming where it served them. And my grandfather, I'm trying to keep this video from getting flagged and all that. It's unfortunate that we can't talk about certain things in a certain way. And my grandmother was complicit in it. So as far as I'm concerned, even though she didn't do the physical acts around it, she was the one who brought me into the situation and was present the whole time. Again, here I am running away from home, running to my daddy, trying to be saved. When my mother shows up, I am 9 years old, or actually maybe 8 years old, with my new daddy. Her husband hunting was a success. And fun fact, my mother has been married 5 times, had a domestic partner on the 6th one. I never met the 6th one. 4 of those husbands, domestic partner died while in living with her, and one of them of cancer. One of them I know she had something to do with. Actually, it was that stepfather. And I met all my stepfathers, never met the domestic partner after my mother married them. Fun fact. Yeah, don't meet the kids first, which I know says something about the men she married in terms of their damage, right? And fortunately for me, they were really lovely men who treated me very, very well. My first stepfather in particular, and he was around for the longest until he died when I was 12 years old. So my mother shows up. She brings my brother and I to Florida because she married an American who lived in Florida. My grandparents, who can't let go of us, and I think me in particular, because I was my grandfather's favorite, just like my mother was, followed us to Florida and bought a flat there. And this meant that I was going through all the same abuses and nothing had stopped between my grandparents' house and my mother's house. And my grandmother was also an alcoholic. A friendly, functional one, but an alcoholic nonetheless. I didn't realize that until I became an adult when I went, Oh, she had drinks in the kitchen, under the sink, in the bathroom, under the sink, behind bookshelves, like the pictures in the bookshelves. Like all of every room she would go into, there was a drink, and the ice was usually just half melted. And I thought that was normal until I did it. Perspective and memories, right? So as I'm living with my mother and the abuse from her is escalating because she resents my existence, when my stepfather would be out of town, which was quite often because he had an import-export business, my mother would abuse me. And when she would, like at a heightened level, like closet rages, tearing it apart, scalding hot baths, just all sorts of emotional effery, like bad, bad, day in, day out. Like the fear I had of her was palpable. And because of that, I didn't realize until I became an adult that I never actually loved her. I was working for her to love me, and I had attachment to her because of that. But where there's fear, like constant fear, love can't grow and develop. There's nothing about her to love. She is a sociopath and a narcissist and a black widow too. Should I say alleged? Screw it. A black widow. So now I'm running away, but I'm not running to find my daddy because I have one that I love very, very much. And I don't run when he's home, but I'm running away all the time. And like so much that I became known to the police. I would run to my friends' houses. I'd sneak in their rooms because one of my friends had like an outer door, and I snuck in and hid in the closet, scared the hell out of her when she went to bed. I'm like, Cindy. She thinks like the room is haunted, goes to get her mother. They find me in the closet, hiding under the beds of other friends' houses, hiding in fields, going to the mall. And unfortunately, when I was 12 years old, I got in a car with someone that's where I was essayed and held throughout an entire night. I was fortunate that he decided to bring me back to my parents' house. Don't know why, other than to stalk me, and that's a whole nother story. There's stories within the stories within the stories. But throughout this whole time that I'm running away and the police are getting called and people are looking for me, my mother on the back end was telling me, if you disappear, nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to look for you. But she was looking for me. And I never paid attention to that action. I believed that nobody was going to look for me. So much so that when I was 13 and a half years old, I ended up living on the streets, and I grew myself up off the streets. I never lived but for a week back in my mother's house ever again after that. I literally made it stick. And times where I was really desperate, where I thought of maybe calling my favorite aunt. She's not my favorite aunt anymore, because I now realize that she was complicit with everything. I didn't call because my mother had told me that nobody would remember me, that I was not memorable, I wasn't significant. I was told that nobody would be looking for me. And so I basically felt like I had done them all a favor. So the answer to your question, the long way around, is yes, 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 and yes.